Halftime is an important part of the National Football League. It is a time for competing teams to reassess and reevaluate their game plan. If the team is behind, they refocus and re-strategize. If the team is ahead, they consider the best way to keep the momentum going for a sure win. Like halftime, midlife is considered the beginning of the second half of a man's life. Some men ignore this important time and they ruin the second half of their lives. But other men refocus, reassess, and prepare for the second half properly. Today we will talk with one man who is successfully navigating this halftime. Understanding the value of midlife has made him a better man. Welcome to Old Man, New Man, and our special guest today is Dr. Christian Yaste. Christian, we're glad you're here.
Thank you for having me.
And you are a dentist here in North Carolina?
I am.
And so you are a man that is somewhere in his 40s, is that right?
I just hit 40.
Okay. And how many children do you have?
2 children, a little boy and a little girl.
Okay. So we're going to talk today about something that affects a lot of men, as a matter of fact, most men, and it's seldom talked about. And you're brave enough to talk to us about it because I certainly consider you a successful man and a man that is walking with God and is close to his family. We're talking about midlife.
Yeah.
Now tell me, is midlife real?
Yeah, it is something that's very real. And for me, it was a very personal experience close to me that happened about 5 years ago. And unfortunately, at the time, I wasn't aware of what was going on. But yes, absolutely very real.
Okay, and why do they call it a crisis? Some folks say midlife crisis. Why do they say that?
Well, it's a time of reflection. So a man comes to a point in his life where he starts to reflect on the past. For me, it happened when I was about 40 years old, not too long ago, and I felt like there was questions in my mind that, had I really done what I wanted to do? Was I really where I wanted to be in my life? And have I accomplished the goals that I set forth for myself?
So it's a sort of reevaluation of your life.
It is.
And it hits at what age?
Well, there are different studies that have been done. Carl Jung, who's a famous analytical psychologist, said that midlife tends to come around between 35 and 45. And there are other studies that have been done out of Yale, and they place it somewhere between 32 and 42, but I would say somewhere a 10-year span between the mid-30s and 40s.
Now, why is it so seldom talked about? Why is midlife crisis ignored by most men?
I think that the number one reason would be awareness. So a lot of men aren't talking to other men about their emotions and their feelings, and so we're not really aware of what's going on in our personal lives. But that awareness factor, Hollywood makes a better play at this than we get from church or our friends or anything like that. And with that awareness factor, the books that have been written, there's only 2 books that I could find that really address the subject well, where there's hundreds of books for women throughout their course of their lives.
Okay. So it's ignored a bit by most folks. Now, you said Hollywood. Whenever I think of Hollywood, I immediately see this guy in this exotic car, convertible perhaps, with his shirt wide open and just trying to be 20 when he's not 20 anymore. And so that's not the positive image that we'd like to talk about because it's a myth. Hollywood portrays midlife in a negative way.
Yeah.
But what are some positives of midlife?
The biggest positive is that you're at a point in your life where you realize, I've gotten through all this stuff that's happened to me, all these challenges that I had as a young man, and now I can really pursue and go forward with vigor and meet some of the new challenges that are there. But there's many positives to being in midlife. You've got the car, you've got the financial means, a lot of times, and so you don't have a lot of the worries that you had as a
So
younger.
I know when I was in my early 20s, I may have been able to hit a baseball further or run up and down the basketball court faster, but I sure had a lot of other concerns regarding my work, my future, my
Right.
family, my financial picture, even where I was going in life was a bit of a challenge. How does it come over to work? Is work affected around midlife?
Well, there's, in all my study with this subject, there's three major forces that come together at midlife that cause this. And the first is a biological or your physical. You start to see your physical self.
So you're physical. Mm-hmm. What's the second?
The second is psychological or emotional changes. We start to ask those questions. There's the question of, am I at where I really want to be? Mm-hmm. And what have I accomplished? Some of those things we discussed earlier. And then your social life. There's these changes in your social life. You're no longer seen as that young man. And so the challenge is, I'm not that strong guy anymore. I'm not.
Hey, man, who are you talking about?
Yeah, I mean,
we still have it, if only in our pride. But you're right. I hear what you're saying. So let's talk a little bit about the physical, mm-hmm. the physical changes. First thing I noticed as soon as I hit 40 was that my hairline was receding a bit, and I didn't bounce back after a baseball game or a basketball game because I was sore the next day.
Yeah. Well, you could tell I have some experience with the hairline.
Yeah. And, hair starts to grow.
Where you don't want it to.
Hey, we'll be honest. Yeah, well, you don't want it to. I mean, I never thought when I was 20 that I'd have to shave my ears or cut hair from my ears. But that's something that comes along, the changes. Not as resilient, perhaps, anymore.
Right.
So what other changes do you see?
Well, I think one of the big ones is, emotionally anyway, is that your ego, and you've got these things that come up at work, some trouble, mm-hmm. maybe that you can't really relate as well to what your career path was. When you're in college and you're just starting out, you kind of have this direction. And then as we hit midlife, a lot of men get distracted by, well, do I want to be the president of the company, or do I just want to stay where I'm at? And you're kind of on this plateau. So you're trying to grow, but at the same time, your life becomes so complex, it's pushing against us. And so we've got complexity here pushing down in this growth that we want. And it's like those machines, those exercise machines, the resistance training machines. Mm-hmm. The harder you push, the harder it pushes back. So for me anyway, simplifying your life at this point is something that will help you grow.
Mm-hmm. How did you simplify your life? I mean, did you experience that midlife transition in the physical, the emotional, the social? Did you experience these changes?
I went through a very strong, what I would consider a midlife crisis, like I said, about 5 years ago. And it happened very gradually for me. Mm-hmm. But yes, I would come to the point where I would ask myself, what am I really doing? What am I doing here? I need to just get away. And
when you say get away, was that in a positive way, or did you just want to jump on a Harley and go across the country?
Yeah. One of the things that men experience during this time is a way to escape. How do you escape? And there's so many different ways that we do. Television, movies, computers, fantasizing about having a different life. Unfortunately, many men have affairs at this point. So there are these escape mechanisms, even hobbies that could be considered healthy. If you're using those to escape your emotions, can cause problems. And for me, it was, I just wanted to put my kids and my family over here and just hop on a motorcycle and take off, start a new life.
And why didn't you do it?
Well, I developed a relationship with you to begin with. I tried to find some mentors. I looked for help.
And I think that's a key thing that we want our viewers to hear, and that is that you talk to another man. And that's a wonderful thing, because as the Bible says in Proverbs, as iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. And so God put us together. And what else did you do?
one of the things that comes to mind is that and this is something that happens to men, is one of the strongest emotions during midlife is a frustration and almost like a pity, a self-pity.
Self-pity.
Yeah, woe is me.
Okay.
I'm not. We don't look at all the positives. We're looking more at kind of the negatives. And to be able to transition, if you start to look at the positives in your life, sit down and take out a piece of paper and write down the 10 things each day that you're thankful for, even the littlest things, and focus on those instead of, how bad you might have it.
And the reason we think we have it bad, even though it's not really bad, is you mentioned because we've sort of plateaued in our career. We've sort of, just kind of hit a wall perhaps, and our bodies have changed, our emotions have changed, we're more committed, more stressed, and so those are some of the things that hit that crisis there. And so you're suggesting to us, talk to someone, and then you said, write down things that you have blessings about or things that you're blessed with. Do you remember some of the 10 things that you wrote or that you were blessed with that helped you into the next stage?
For me, it was important to start looking at my family.
Your family started.
Yeah. Work was very important to me, and during this time in my life, I focused very heavily on work and achieving some of the goals that I set forth. And unfortunately, that had a real negative on my home life. And so, at the counsel of you and indirectly even from other people, I started to focus more on my family and also my spiritual life and participating more in things of that nature. I started to come to church more regularly. I started seeking out different people to get help and talk to, kind of man to man. Not just, and about my feelings, not just about, the game last night or,
right.
Different,
like deeper level of communication. But Christian, what you did is exceptional in itself, because why is it that as men we have such a hard time asking for help? We often wait until we've crashed into a brick wall before we ask anyone or talk to anyone about how to navigate through it. Well, why do you think we do that?
Well, in today's culture, there's probably a couple reasons, but in the American man is or has been trained to be, a man, and don't ask for help. Don't be a baby, don't be a girl. Don't talk about your feelings. That's not manly. And I think that kind of comes from the last probably 5 or 6 decades. But we're starting to understand now that that's really important and it's powerful to be able to share your emotions with another man and to identify with that. And it's not easy. I'll be honest. I mean, I'll be the first one to tell you, it's like, to drag them out.
Yeah.
For me especially, I'm very introverted and I keep those emotions close.
So we have this image we want to portray.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of my favorite scenes in a movie called The Gladiator is when the emperor, by the way, have you seen it?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, where the emperor is standing in front of the Spaniard, or gladiator, the main character, and he says, Gladiator, take off your mask. Who are you? And he asks several times until he finally takes off his mask and says, this is who I am. And you had the ability to talk to someone else. I know that I couldn't be here, Christian, if it wasn't because I too talked to other guys, men that were successful, men that were friends and colleagues, that we could talk about these things and walk through them together, just like the Bible says. And so what happened next? After you wrote down the 10 things that you did, what did you do after that?
I spent more time reading my Bible.
So you came back to the Lord?
Yeah. It was at a time in my life when work was very important, like I mentioned, and I had shut a lot of these other areas out, my family, spiritual things. And so I really tried to focus more on, reading the Bible and searching for answers. And I was able to find those. And with mentors' help and also the help of my family. My wife was very patient with me during this
Praise
time.
God.
And without her love and her commitment to our marriage, it could have easily dissolved. And unfortunately, that happens to a lot of men.
Yeah, absolutely. And so if you didn't seek help or change the direction you were going, then you would have been all consumed with work, and you would have put the family aside. But now, you talked about a plateau. Did you reach a career plateau where you kind of felt, what's my next vision? What's my next mountain to climb? Did you experience that?
Yeah, and really the two major factors that determine when a man is going to kind of reach that crisis, one is how they were able to handle problems as a child and things that were kind of thrown at them. So how do they handle stress when they're growing up?
Okay.
And then also is what goals have they set for themselves? And so when you achieve those goals, a lot of times that's when it kind of like, and for me, I was very fortunate. I was very blessed. I hit some goals that I had thought would take me 20 years to get to that took 5.
Wow.
And so I got to this point in my career where everything just kind of leveled out. Like you mentioned, that plateau, and the monotony started to set in.
Day by day, yeah.
And I started looking for ways to make life interesting again. And how do you do that? You use those escape mechanisms. You turn the television on, or you just, maybe it's time to try new things. A lot of men struggle with things like alcoholism and drug abuse and those sorts of things at this point in their life as well.
So you just, that plateau, to try to escape it, you talked about it, the escapism. You tried to find something out, an outlet,
Yeah.
and you reached your goals early, so you had to set new goals?
I'm in the process of doing that.
You're in the process.
I mean, I have to admit that my midlife crisis, as you would call it, it's taken a turn. I mean, I can now see the light at the end of the tunnel. And it's been very helpful to do things like read books. I was able to find 2 books that were just great on midlife crisis.
Okay, good.
And
good.
that has helped me. But as we turn the corner and I'm getting out of that point in my life, I'm really excited about moving forward. I think about the things that you and I have talked about before. This is the best time of your life. This is where you get to look ahead and really spend time with your children and your family. And they're a blessing, not a burden.
Now, you're saying this is the best time of your life. Talk to us about that. Why is midlife for a man the best time of his life?
Well, we talked a little bit more about this earlier, but financially, for me personally, I reached some financial goals, and so it's not as hard as it was when I first got out of school. I was struggling. My family was struggling just to pay bills, and for most men at this point in their life, they're at least comfortable. Now, unfortunately, some of us will put ourselves into endangering our finances, and again, it goes back to if you're having this crisis and you're looking for outlets, spending money can be one of those ways to escape, and you might make some unwise decisions with your finances. But being able to go out and go on a vacation,
so you're able to do that with your family now?
Absolutely, and have that freedom. That's nice.
Yeah. How about your wife? Did you reconnect with your wife?
Yeah, and I'm still in the process of that. And one of the things that was real helpful to me as well was my wife encouraged me to go see a marriage counselor. I was very resistant to that at the time.
Okay.
It was the whole man thing coming out again. I don't need to talk to anybody about this.
Yeah.
But we spent some time, and I was able to spend some time one-on-one with this individual, and he really helped me to see it from a different perspective. And it's important to, I think at this point, to look at that. Your perspective and how you see things is really what your reality is.
At oldmannewman.com, you can watch this program and many others that will help you along life's journey. There, you will also find the contact information of our guests, along with resources that will further equip you. The Bible tells us in 2 Corinthians 5:17 that if anyone is in Christ, he is a new creation. The old has gone and the new has come. Ladies, when the men we love are strong and happy, we too are happier. We are here to equip the men with proven biblical information for success in their Christian adventure. Send us an email with any questions or comments you may have. Pastor Minner and I would love to hear from you. Old Man, New Man, dedicated to equipping God's men for this life and beyond.
You know, LeBron James, I use him as an illustration. He's a pretty good basketball player. You know, he's not loved by folks anymore, at least in the North. But he still needs coaching, even though he's a superstar NBA player. He still needs a coach to give him pointers, and we'll always need someone to talk to.
Oh, yeah.
As men.
Absolutely. And it's important to find spiritual mentors, but I feel like for me it was also important to find mentors, professional mentors,
Mm-hmm.
people that I could talk to that had been in my shoes from a professional standpoint.
Excellent.
And those folks could tell me, hey, listen, you know, do this, or just relax, or, you know, don't worry about that. That helped me too. Mm-hmm. I also have a business partner, and that helps to kind of balance
And you're
things
both about
up.
the same age?
We are, but we're totally different personalities. So.
Yeah, and so you talk together through your
Yeah.
business choices. And
Absolutely.
yeah, no man is an island, and so that's one of the myths we have to debunk and get over, is that we need each other to become stronger. You know, in the Bible it talks about that. For example, David, we hear his story often, but he was surrounded by mighty men. He was surrounded by his generals and his friends, and they would mentor, help him, and they would counsel and advise him from time to time. And when he got in trouble was when he didn't talk to them.
Yeah, and he had his own little midlife crisis as well.
He certainly did. He certainly did.
And we can learn things from that. You know, I mean, you can relate. I think God is telling us with David's story, he's saying, look, this is going to happen to you. And you can pretty much count on it happening. If you're an American man, you got an 80% chance is what they say of going through this. But this is something that God designed for us to be able to get to the next level in our lives. Mm-hmm. And we need to go through sometimes painful experiences to be able to mature and get to that next level.
Excellent. Now, you have at least 10 things you told me you wanted to tell us about being a successful man or navigating through the midlife years. And so let's talk about those a little bit. You've given me a heads up on these 10. Tell me at least a few with the time that we have remaining.
One thing that happened that I'll share with you is I made a commitment to have more integrity. And
more integrity.
Integrity is really important. I mean, we just don't talk about it that much anymore. It's not something that we see in the media, but it's critical. I mean, for a man to be a real man, a boy knows about integrity, but it takes a man to really live it
and do it
and have a commitment to that, and to your family and your wife and your friends, your whole value system. It's so important. So for me, I made it a commitment. I wanted to have more integrity.
More integrity, and that's not just the work setting, but it's also to your wife and it's also to your family. And so being a man of integrity to her and to your children.
Yes.
Across the board, instead of the pity parties that you talked about.
Right. Another thing is, remember that you're a powerful man. I mean, you
like to think so, amen?
Yeah. I mean, we have experience.
Yes.
The guys that are coming up, if you're in a corporate type of structure, and you see these young guys and they're coming up, and you know, there's a lot of men that are kind of worried about, where am I going to fit in? Am I going to be able to advance? Mm-hmm. Don't forget that you've been there. You've waded through the storm. You've been able to prove yourself, and don't lose confidence in yourself.
Okay, so remember that you're a powerful man. You're valuable. You are in a position where you've earned your stripes over the years, and so now you're doing well. You're in a position where sometimes these young people intimidate us. However, you're saying, recognize that you bring some talent, some experience, and some value to your place of work.
Right. In getting back to work, now might be a good time to make some decisions about your job, your career. Are you happy in what you're doing? If you're not, you've got maybe 20 more years of work ahead of you. So now might be a good time to reevaluate and look at what it is that you really want out of work, and kind of maybe go in a different direction. Obviously without endangering your finances or your family's position.
Keep the foundation strong.
Right.
And so, Christian, we really appreciate the insights you're giving us on this. And God has certainly helped you through and is helping you through. Now, you have something to say, and something that was very special to you as you were studying and reading. You want to share that with us?
Yeah. This is a quote from Joel and Lewis Davids in their book, Making It from 40 to 50.
Okay.
And this is the quote: "No other decade is more intriguing, complex, interesting, and unsettled." Isn't that the truth?
Oh, yeah.
"Other than our childhood, no other period has a greater impact on the balance of our lives, for at no other time is anxiety coupled with so great a possibility for fulfillment." And that stood out to me because there are all these kind of things that could be construed as negative. There's anxiety, but that anxiety leads to fulfillment. And so, at the end of our lives, we can look back, and my challenge to the viewers and to myself is the last, you look at your first 40 years, make this, if that was all about you, make it the second part of your life about others. Serve others. And become more spiritually competent. Serve God.
Excellent, excellent. Well, Christian, thank you for helping us navigate through the midlife that we so often neglect, but that is so important, and so many of us go through. And so you've heard it. Christian is a man that's successful, and he's learned to navigate through midlife. We're glad that you've joined us here on Old Man, New Man, and we believe that God has victory for you. And so if you're navigating through the midlife, be encouraged. We're making it, and so can you. God's on your side. Thank you for joining us on Old Man, New Man.